Good evening and welcome to today's weekly marine weather briefing. My name is Amanda Reinhart and I'll be describing what's currently happening today and what to expect through the weekend and into early next week. So let's take a look at today's surface analysis. The main feature on our map is this cold front stretching across the Atlantic and into the Northwest Caribbean. We also have a developing gale associated with a low pressure system in the central Atlantic. And we'll have pulsing gale force winds near the coast of Colombia. So here's the current satellite view. As you can see here, we've got that cold front stretching across the Atlantic, south of the Keys, and into the Northwest Caribbean with some showers associated with that. We also have a dying frontal boundary stretching from the central Atlantic and into north of Puerto Rico, and there are some showers associated with that too. So going into the current conditions for today, behind the cold front we're seeing moderate to fresh winds across the Gulf of Mexico and off the coast of Florida. We're also seeing fresh to strong winds across the south central Caribbean, especially north of Colombia, with seas 8 to 11 feet. And with that dying cold front, as I mentioned previously, there's some fresh to strong winds behind that with seas up to 16 feet. And that low pressure system, as I mentioned before, it's in the central Atlantic with developing gales that are expected to develop tonight. And here is your look at the Friday's forecast. So that cold front is still going to press south and east across the Atlantic and Northwest Caribbean with moderate to fresh winds continuing behind the front. We're expecting gale force winds into early Friday morning near the coast of Colombia with seas 8 to 12 feet. And with that low pressure system, we're expecting gale force winds north of the low and seas building up to near 15 feet. And for your forecast on Saturday, we're still expecting that cold front to be stretching across the Atlantic and into the Northwest Caribbean with moderate to fresh winds behind it. We'll also start to see moderate to fresh return flow in the Northwest Gulf of Mexico. Gale force winds are still going to be expected early Saturday morning with seas 8 to 12 feet. We're also expecting fresh strong winds across the Windward Passage and downwind of Hispaniola with seas potentially 8 to 10 feet. And of course, by Saturday morning, we are expecting gale force winds to end north of this low pressure system, but fresh to strong winds are still going to continue with seas of 14 to 16 feet. And by Sunday, we'll see that initial cold front begin to die with the next cold front entering into the area. There's going to be widespread moderate to fresh winds across most of the Atlantic with moderate to fresh return flow in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll see some possibility of gale force winds north of Colombia with 8 to 12 foot seas. We'll also see fresh to strong winds once again in the Windward Passage and downwind of Hispaniola with 8 to 10 foot seas. And by Monday, we'll see that cold front I mentioned previously begin to die and dissipate, and fresh to locally strong winds are expected with seas to 12 feet. We're also expecting another cold front to push off the east coast of the United States and linger across the northern Gulf of Mexico with some fresh to strong southerly winds ahead of that front, basically off the northeast Florida coast. We're also expecting fresh strong winds near Colombia with 8 to 12 foot seas and some fresh to strong winds downwind of Hispaniola with 8 to 10 foot seas. And by Tuesday, that cold front pushing off the east coast will continue to move eastward across the Atlantic and still linger across the northern Gulf of Mexico. We're not expecting any winds above moderate for now in our waters. However, in the Caribbean, once again, we're expecting fresh strong winds north of Colombia with 8 to 10 foot seas and fresh strong winds downwind of Hispaniola with seas to 8 feet. And that that low pressure system in the central Atlantic that's been lingering, it'll really begin to dissipate by Tuesday with 10-foot seas associated with that system in our northern waters of the central Atlantic. And in summary, gale force winds are expected with that low pressure system in the central Atlantic tonight through Friday night, with seas building to near 15 feet. Gale force winds will pulse near the coast of Colombia tonight and Friday night with 8 to 12 foot seas associated with that, and gales are possible on Saturday night. And this concludes your weekly marine weather briefing, and our next briefing will be posted on Sunday at 5 p.m.